Welcome everybody back to the channel and welcome to a new series. We are starting off here on Port Royal Pop. I'm Patrick McCarthy. I am the head editor here at the Port Royal Network. Welcome to Screen Time on Pop. This is our new movie discussion show which we are doing. Hopefully we're going to be doing this weekly where we have a look at some of the news making headlines in the world of movies and television and streaming services. And just giving, just discussing some of those items and that. Starting off strong here on the channel with this new series of Screen Time because we are going to have a bit of a DC run through with James Gunn, who has announced. So if you aren't aware, James Gunn and Peter Saffran are DC Comics, like the DC's new guys that they're going with moving forward to sort of make their DC cinematic universe. They're going to be the captains of the ship, so to speak. They're going to be running the show. They're going to be the new, the guys that are steering where DC and DC movies and the cinematic universe go here on in. So Warner Bros. Hired them. So you may remember James Gunn as the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy series. He did the Suicide Squad, which is often hailed as one of the best DC movies that are out there. So, yeah, he's the mind behind that one. So what had happened at the end of last year, James Gunn, when he was hired, he was having meetings, he was sorting things out, and he said in an interview that all will be revealed in January, pretty much. And everybody waited. Nothing was announced. We got right up to D-Day for January. Nothing was announced until the very last moment. I don't even know if this counts as, because it just dropped this morning here in Australia, which is the 1st of February. So I guess he may have made it to the end of January over in the States. Not too sure, but beside the point, they've dropped the slate. And on today's episode, we're going to go through, look at each announcement, what is announced for what's going to be on the big screen, what's going to be on the streaming services or whatever TV shows. We're going to have a look at those and just have a bit of a discussion and give you my thoughts around it. So I haven't seen any of the slate yet. I've seen bits and pieces here and there, maybe one or two announcements. But as far as what else is on this slate, I have absolutely no idea what we're going to see, so let's get right into it and have a look at the DC slate. So this comes courtesy of thedirect.com. We're going to be reading off their article by Aaron Entrecol. And it's posted the 31st of January. So maybe you did make the cutoff. Give them that. Good on you, James Gunn and Peter Saffran. So it reads, after a long wait, James Gunn and Peter Saffran's new DCU slate has finally arrived, and it's jam-packed with exciting character introductions and universe-building potential. So let's just backtrack before we keep going any further and just say that this is going to be, from what we gather, what we understand, this is going to be a reboot universe, starting from scratch, introducing these characters, again, rebooting the entire DCEU. And let's face it, the DCEU as it stands has been running for about 10 years, and it never really picked up off the ground as to where they wanted to go with the franchise, with the universe itself. It has long lived under the MCU shadow. It tried to distance itself from being Marvel. It tried to change, go dark, go dreary. It tried to change that and tried to make an identity of its own, which didn't really pay off for them in terms that it didn't really get as much momentum or as much people behind it as they were hoping. That's not a knock on what they were wanting to do, what they were trying to do. I don't mind having those darker superhero flicks, more somber toned, more serious, more darker look in general. I don't mind that. I absolutely don't mind it at all. I think when applied well, And when applied right, I think it works. And a good example of that is the Batman. I absolutely loved the Batman. It finished actually as my number one movie for 2022. I can't get enough of the Batman, and I'm excited because, spoiler alert, they've announced the Batman Part 2, which we'll get into. So that was one of the announcements I've seen, is the Batman. But in terms of the DCEU, I won't go as far as call it a failure, as a lot of people do. I would say it had its run, that ran its course. It had some good movies in there. Like I said, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is often hailed as one of the best. I really like Shazam. I think what they did with Shazam was really impressive. And heck, look, they had an entire fan base petition for them to release a cut of the Justice League, which we knew existed, and we didn't, well, I didn't think at the time would get much momentum, but they petitioned, they pushed until Zack Snyder's Justice League came out. So they had their moments. Batman vs Superman, I think, was a good film. Man of Steel, which I think is the best Superman movie and one of the best comic book movies of all time, is right up there. Batman and Superman, the extended edition of that one's pretty good. I think also the characters and the actors that they got to portray some of the characters, I think, were really, really well done. I look at Jason Momoa's Aquaman, which I think that was good. I look at Henry Cavill's Superman, great. And for what it's worth, Ben Affleck's Batman, Batfleck, was absolutely amazing as well. Ezra Miller is The Flash, which is coming out this year. So I think the casting choices that they did for the title of heroes throughout the series, I think you can't knock that. They absolutely did a magnificent job with that one. It's just the movies they were in, the way that they tried to start something, and then the very next movie they had to they tried to shift focus, and it was just all over the place, a bit of a mess. So I think it's run its course, had its moments, and I think everyone will be happy to see it sail off in the sunset with the remaining movies that are coming out this year, which, remember, are not part of the DCU moving forward. So The Flash, which is coming out in June, which is this guy right here, my highly and most anticipated superhero movie of the year, because I can't wait to see Michael Keaton as Batman and The Flash in this movie. I have my theory about that, which I'll probably get into at the end of the episode. And then you got the new Aquaman as well coming out, which is going to be the farewell to the DCEU, is this Aquaman movie. And Shazam! Fury of the Gods coming out. I think Fury of the Gods may be coming out a bit sooner, and I think Aquaman is the last one of the DCEU. So what started all the way with Zack Snyder's Man of Steel is going to finish off its run with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, or whatever it's called. So it's had its run. Let it rest in peace. Alright, so let's get into new DCU, every DC movie and TV show announced by James Gunn and Peter Saffran. Let's go down. Okay, so this is interesting. Let's read this little snippet. So during a special presentation, so this is via Variety, DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn announced the first chapter of the DCU reboot as, and here's the first interesting bit, DCU Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. So they've titled this new rebuilding phase as the DCU Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Oh, what do you think about that? I mean, you think of gods as in Superman, you think of Wonder Woman, then you got monsters, you think of Bane, you think of Doomsday, all these characters that could fit this, and it's Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters seems to imply that we're setting the stage as to what's to come. So Gunn explained their strategy for developing the slate. One of our strategies is to take our diamond characters, which is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and use them to prop up other characters that people don't know. I'll read the next quote and then I'll come back Saffron continued by explaining what makes DC Studios different from other production entities. DC Studios is unprecedented. It is a standalone production entity and studio. It is the first time ever that everything DC-related film, television, live-action, animation, gaming is all centralized under one creative vision, that of James and myself. What's that? James brought together the writers' room to build the DCU's shared universe. The Martian writer Drew Goddard, Moon Knight, Doom Patrol's Jeremy Slater, The Flash and Batgirl scribe Christina Hobson, Watchmen's Crystal Henry, and comic writer Tom King were brought together by the DC Studios head. We sat down in a room for a few days and we started to bash out what the basic overall plan could be. Not so much that it ties your wrists, but enough that we know what the basic story is, where we're going, and something that we'll continue to do. So the slate has 11 projects, 10 new titles, and 1 Elseworlds, which include the Superman reboot, a Batman and Damian Wayne team-up film, and many, many more. A lot to unpack in the statement. Let's go back to the first quote. One of the strategies is to diamond characters. So, as expected, as would probably be the smart thing, and you can't... If you're going to build a DCU world, you have to centralize it around the Trinity, the Holy Trinity. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. You have to build it around those 3 iconic characters that everybody on the planet knows. Everybody on the planet knows Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So you build the universe up around that, and you use them to prop up other characters, which is what DCEU tried to do. But the pacing and the way that they did it was not... It wasn't as... It wasn't as good or as thought out or as planned as they wanted it. So it is what it is, and that's where that one falls on its head. So this is good. I like that. Centered around those 3 guys and then work your way from there. There were talks that he was going to go straight in with a Justice League reboot, just straight into it, and then have your characters spin off there, which wouldn't have been a bad thing, but let's... and again... This is the comments that he's making, it's talking about the strategy. So we're going to go into the movies and see. I think director's got it in order how they're coming out, but anyway, we'll get to that. So the second point there is DC Studios is now one entity. Like Marvel Studios, like Lucasfilm, everything that has to do with the MCU goes through Marvel Studios. Everything that has to do with Star Wars goes through Lucasfilm. So it's only fitting and only appropriate and right. This is the right choice they made, was to make DC Studios. Everything relating to DC goes under this umbrella. It's a standalone production entity and studio. This is absolutely 100% the right move to make, because where it stood before is at Warner Brothers with a production company. So overall, they were just having these sort of blocks with movie by movie. But having everything with a shared vision going forward under DC Studios and the Gunn and... under James Gunn and Saffran, having that shared vision is absolutely going to do wonders for this universe. Alright, everything sounds good so far. Let's keep going. Alright, I may have scrolled a bit too far before, but movie number 1, Superman Legacy. DC Studios co-CEO Peter Saffran revealed that Superman Legacy will mark the start of the DCU, but he mentioned not an origin story. So important to know, this is not an origin story of Superman. It is the start of the DCU, but it goes on to say that it's going to focus on the titular hero trying to balance his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. Describe the Superman as the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. I'm going to leave the quote on the screen there. You can read it as I'm giving you my thoughts about this. And yeah, absolutely, this is the right move to make. This is absolutely the right move to make. Start your universe off with the most well-known superhero of your brand, Superman. And yeah, don't give us origin. We had an origin story. And this is the thing with origin stories, is that you get sick of them especially with the big characters, with your Batmans, with your Supermans, extended crossing over with your Spider-Mans. You get sick of it because you know these characters, you know where they came from, you know how they became to be. Let's just skip all that, which is something that absolutely needed to happen for the Nolan Batman trilogy. When The Batman came out, Matt Reeves' The Batman came out, he absolutely skipped over the origin, which was the good thing to do. So yeah, let's just let's not have origin stories. Let's just have these characters, because we know how they became the character, we know why, we know how. Let's just get right into them, and by the sound of things, by reading into that sentence, it's going to be a coming of age story around Superman, which suggests that they're going to go for a younger actor. They're going to go for a younger Superman, and he's balancing being Superman, he's balancing being Kryptonian. It's giving me a lot of Smallville vibes, a lot of the flashback scenes from Man of Steel. And like I said at the start of this video, the Man of Steel movie is probably one of the best comic book movies, in my opinion. That's high, I rate it high on my list. So James Gunn goes on to say that he's writing the project. Saffran expressed his hope that the CEO can be persuaded to direct it. Ooh, okay. Meanwhile, Gunn had to say, Superman's for everyone. They're a 4-quadrant film that speak to everyone in the world. That's a 4-quadrant film that should speak to everyone in the world, yep. We've got a date. There we go. Superman Legacy is set to be released in theaters July 11th. I just read the next title of the movie and I'm like, oh, let's just slow down a bit. All right. James Gunn is a comic book aficionado. He's a geek. He loves his comic book movies. So by getting him to write the Man of Steel reboot, I think is the best thing to do. He is the guy that is going to set the tone for what DCU has to follow. It is absolutely 100% the best decision to have him write it, because he's, him and Saffran are the guys pulling the strings for the DCU. He is setting it up. He is projecting it off into a tangent in which films are going to follow. So by having him write it, one thing, that's good, because he's going to set the direction, he's going to set the tone. By having him direct it, I think, yes, I'll be all aboard for James Gunn directed Superman movie to set the tone for what's to come. So he's going to write it, he's pulling the strings, he's laying out the roadmap. Go that one step further, James Gunn, and direct it. I think that'll set the tone moving forward. All right, this is what I was looking at. Movie number 2, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. All right. There we go. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is set to take inspiration from Tom King's miniseries, with Gunn confirming that the movie will explore a very different type of Supergirl and be much more hardcore. He goes on to say that we will see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, raised on a rock, a chip off Krypton, who watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of life, come to live on Earth, which is much more hardcore, not the Supergirl that we're used to. It's unknown if Krypto the Super Dog, who appeared in King's comic run, will appear in the movie. Okay, consider my interest piqued. I haven't seen Supergirl. I don't know what the CW Supergirl show is about. I don't know much about this character, though what they've said there, she's this outsider looking out. She's this sort of exile, this sort of outcast who's looking in, who may be a bit of jealousy, maybe looking out from the inside, looking to the inside from the outside, having this horrible images of death and hardship in her first 14 years of her life. Then she comes to Earth, which is no paradise, this is no wonder. It's no, la-di-da place. So she comes and she brings all that with her to this planet. consider myself intrigued. I want to see how this plays out. So, yeah, give me Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Let's get that going. And I need to slow down a bit because I'm getting the next title. I want to just go movie by movie, but the next movie, The Brave and the Bold, Batman and Damian Wayne. Whew. Yeah, this brings a smile to my face. The Brave and the Bold will exist alongside Robert Pattinson's Batman, an Elseworld story set outside the DCU. All right, hold up. There it is right there. Robert Pattinson will remain as Batman in The Batman. And it's an Elseworld story set outside the DCU. Yes, 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 yes. What makes this project different is that we'll introduce the Bat family with Gunn confirming that version of Robin that will team up with DCU's Batman is Damian Wayne, Bruce's biological son. Gunn described Damian as our favourite Robin, a little son of a bitch, an assassin, a murderer. Sign me up. Sign me up already. Okay, two things there. Yes, we're getting a Brave and the Bold Batman. We're getting a Batman which we haven't seen. Well, we have seen before. But a Batman that he has a sidekick underneath him in terms of Damian Wayne, his actual son. We have seen it, the Batman and Robin movie and Batman Forever. Which is... Batman and Robin, sorry. Which is amongst itself. That's whatever. Finally, we're getting a different Batman. We're getting a Batman that we're going to have a team-up movie. We're getting, hopefully, it's going to be a Batman movie that's different to the Robert Pattinson's Batman. So I'm hoping the tone is going to be complete polar opposite. Going to be completely different to what the tone is for the Batman to distinguish it from that world. Yeah, I am really looking forward to seeing more and hearing more about what the Brave and the Bold Batman is going to be. So it goes on to say that the Brave and the Bold will explore a very strange sort of father-son story about Bruce and Damian Wayne. Inspired, yeah, there you go. It's inspired by Grant Morrison's Batman comics and Tom King's run of the same name. Sign me up. I'm sold. Batman, Brave and the Bold, which brings to two very important questions. It doesn't say here if Gunn is writing it. So if Gunn's going to write Superman, he has to write Batman. In my opinion, I think Gunn should write the pillars. He should write the stories for the pillars which are going to set the DCU moving forward. He should definitely write them. And I think he should direct this one. He should definitely direct the Batman, the Brave and the Bold. I think for him to set the tone, like I said, set the tone and set the direction for the DCU, he should at least be involved in these early stages a lot. Which, it comes down to time frames. Is he going to have enough time to do Superman and Batman? We'll just have to wait and see. But I am happy that this is confirmed. I'm happy we're going to see a different Batman in this DCU to what we've seen. And I'm happy that we're going to get this Brave and the Bold adaptation. Looking forward to it. Okay, Paradise Lost, Wonder Woman prequel HBO Max series. Paradise Lost is set to explore the Amazons of Themyscira before the birth of Diana, Wonder Woman. Okay. The Saffran teasing is that it has this Game of Thrones-ish story. Everything's got this Game of Thrones-ish story these days. The Last of Us had this Game of Thrones story and stuff like that. Okay, you know what? With the shows and the production values that HBO Max have had lately, in terms of The Last of Us, in terms of Chernobyl, in terms of Games of Thrones, House of the Dragon, I am 100% sold on the idea of HBO Max being a front runner in terms of series. And if this sounds like a prequel, okay, so it's going to explore the world of the Amazonians. I am sold on that idea. Yeah. Set the tone for what the Wonder Woman movie is going to be. Set the world, build the world around it. Give us this look at this the world of the Amazonians. I think it has the potential to be a really well put together production. I think HBO Max has proved that when they want to do production and they want to think about production values, they go all out for. Just look at The Last of Us. So, Paradise Lost set to explore. Yep. I like that idea. Introduce us. So, while all these things are happening on the big screen, this is going to drop on HBO Max. Yeah, definitely give us that. Build this world around us as it's happening on the big screen as well. And that's the thing that the DCU is going to do. It's going to create this world of movies, TV series, video games, everything around it. So while that's happening on the big screen, give us these little glimpses of what's happening on the small screen and what's happening around the world to further build the world up. Look at what Marvel did with the MCU. They started off with all these movies. Great, well put together cinematic universe, and then they incorporated the Disney Plus shows. They incorporated TV shows into it. Some TV shows didn't really take off as much as it, but what they did was they built the world around it. So yes, give us more of that. Okay. What else? Saffran noticed HBO Max prequels will expand the political intrigue behind the Society of All Women. Yep. Oh yeah. I am intrigued in that one. This is going to be a all-female television show, all-female HBO series. Yeah, about time. Gunn chimed in saying that the show will look to answer questions about the origins of the mascara and its beautiful and ugly truths. Yep. Yeah, this is the world that Wonder Woman lives in. She's born into it. It's this society of all women. It's the society of beauty. The society of euphoria. But in amongst all this, the glamour, there's definitely going to be its ugly truth. There's dark side to it. Yeah, let's see it play out. I want to see that dark side, that gritty side of this world. All right, how did that come about? What is the origin of an island of all women? What are the beautiful truths and ugly truths behind all of that? And what's the scheming like between the different power plays in that society? I'm nodding, as in yes. Paradise Lost appears to be a callback to Phil Jimenez and George Perez's Paradise Island Lost comics that explored the civil war on the island. So, okay. Don't know much about that comic. So, full disclosure, I don't know much about the comics side of comic book stories. I appreciate them, but I've just never read it. It's comic look, and that's the thing. Here in Australia, comic books were never really a medium that took off. We had video games, movies, TV series, and all that, but comic books were sort of. There aren't too many comic book stores around. When I was growing up, there weren't many around, and comics weren't as big of a thing here in Australia than it was, somewhere over in the United States, which is just a cultural difference. So all of my knowledge and all of my intrigue to get into the superhero franchise would be from movies, from video games especially. But, it doesn't end there. So if I see a character I like, I'm going to explore, go and read up more, search all these articles, search all the backstories as to all these characters. So, yeah, that's just about me. But moving on, not about me. It's about what's happening in DCU. Booster Gold, HBO Max. There was a bit of rumors that this would be announced, and they've done it. HBO's Max's Booster Gold will explore a new time-traveling hero for the DCU. A loser from the future who used basic technology to come back today and pretend to be a superhero. Gunn then added that he has imposter syndrome as a superhero. The comics might cast a disgraced former football star who uses time machine to go present day and become a hero. The comedy series has no original release date yet. Alright, two things to take away here. Booster Gold series is, yes, it's a comedy series. So they're going to stick with that genre. And following from that point is that we're going to be seeing different genres play out in the DCU, which is, yes, they're going to explore different genres. They're going to dip into different themes, different comedy, seriousness, whatever. They're going to dip their toes into each of those genres, and I say about time. The other side to this thing is that Booster Gold, is this the character that Jason Momoa is going to be playing? Because he did express interest. It's a character that he wants to play. But I'm getting him confused. I do apologize. No, I'm thinking of Lobo. Lobo is the character that Jason Momoa wanted to play. Different character. My apologies. Moving on. Okay, Creature Commandos animated movie. Don't know much about what this is, but let's have a read. Animated series, more modern take on the characters who was first introduced from the pages of DC Comics. In the comics, it was introduced as a team of monsters, namely Frankenstein's monster, werewolf, vampire, a gorgon, fighting Nazis. However, given it's described as a modern take, a whole new wave of oddworldly character. Okay. It's already in production, with him finished writing every episode. So Creature Commandos has 7 episodes. James Gunn has written all those episodes, and it's already in production. So that's a good thing about animation, is that the production time is a lot, even though it's a long and there's a lot of effort and a lot of, not a knock on it, but it's a lot shorter than a feature film. So that's good to hear that it's in production, and this is going to fall in there somewhere. So that's good to hear. Intrigued about this team of, monsters, team of werewolves, zombies, or whatever they are. Definitely intrigued to read more about what these characters are, who these characters are, because, I have absolutely no idea what they are. So it's good to hear that we're getting, and that's the thing, that DCU has always been the benchmark for comic book animation. So having that, history, that background, that reputation that they've had come into the DCU, thumbs up. Okay, so Gunn shows that Creature Commandos allowing their creative collaborators tell the stories that are gigantic. 50 million an episode. But without spending, 50 million an episode. Oh, okay. Alright, I read that wrong. I jumped the gun. No pun intended. Oh, and then it goes on to say, although the voice cast has not yet been announced, it was confirmed that the top executive are looking to find actors who can portray the live action versions of these characters down the line. Two sentences here will unpack. First of all, it's James Gunn saying, they can make these shows, they can make these, invite these collaborators to come along, make these animated features, but not blow in the budget. Having this good budget to tell these stories, to tell these gigantic stories in an animated sense, without doing a live action, which will cost 50 million an episode. That's what he's saying. But he's also saying that he's looking for for actors who can also portray the live action versions of these characters down the line, which is saying that, he's going to cast these characters, but they're going to cross over. If they need to cross over to the live action down the track, we're going to get the actors who are going to be portraying them, and they're going to be able to do it on the big screen. So that's smart thinking. That's forward planning right there. That's exactly what this DCU studio is to plan for things like that. So we are now seeing the fruits of this happen. Amanda Waller series. Hang on one moment. I've just got to duck off the screen just 1 second. Hang on one moment. Excuse me. All right, Amanda Waller series. While Peacemaker Season 2 is being pulled on hold, Gunn said that Waller will act as a continuation of that series since Team Peacemaker appeared alongside Viola Davis Viola Davis's Amanda Waller in the upcoming spin-off. Okay. The end of Peacemaker. I'm not going to read that because I haven't seen Peacemaker. So, okay, I like Amanda Waller as a character, and I like the way that Viola Davis portrays her. And so far, this is the first crossover we're seeing from the old DCEU into the new DCU. So interesting to see how that's gonna portray. Is it just gonna be like, like she's just Amanda Waller? Is it gonna be like the James Bond situation where they did the whole reboot with Daniel Craig in 2006, and M is just M. Judi Dench is just playing M, because it's Judi Dench, it's M. So is it going to be the situation like that where it's just like she's Amanda Waller? Everything that's happened is just like reset, whatever. Don't worry about that. This is Amanda Waller. It's going to be like that because it worked with Judi Dench as M. It definitely worked like that. You didn't bat an eye. You didn't think, oh, wait a minute, isn't M like MI6, back in the day and blah, blah, blah. She already knows Bond. Doesn't matter. It's Judi Dench. And if you apply that situation right here, Viola Davis. I'm looking forward to that. It'd probably be like a really short, limited series, like what they did with, like how Marvel did with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The in between, they did these short little Agent Carter series. So I'm thinking that's what they're going to try. They're going to emulate that because that's relevant. Point I'm trying to say is that they're trying to maybe they'll have the series wedged in between the 2 seasons, shorter series, shorter storyline, and some of the characters will show up in there. Okay, gonna blah 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 because I haven't seen Peacemaker yet, which I need to watch. But here we go, Green Lantern show, Lanterns. Now it says Green Lantern show, so that doesn't say HBO like the other ones have been saying. Let's go ahead and read. Lanterns revolve around 2 known best in the Green Lantern Corps, Hal Jordan and John Stewart, as they investigate a mystery that is expected to play a big role in the main story of DCU's Chapter 1. Saffran describes Lanterns as a huge HBO quality event that is very much in the vein of True Detectives. Lanterns is separate from Greg Berlanti's planned Green Lantern series for HBO Max, which is confirmed to not be moving forward by Saffran. Fair enough. The DCU Studios co-CEO explained the decision behind the cancellation of the Green Lantern. Okay, so backtracking, bit of history, bit of context. Greg Berlanti was developing a Green Lantern series for HBO Max. So with the new reboot in the DCU, it sounds like, and we'll read about in just a couple of seconds, that they've cut that out. So no Green Lantern series. So this Lanterns show is completely separate from what they were working on with Green Lantern. And one thing to note is, like I said, it doesn't say HBO Max show in the title, but it's saying a huge HBO quality event. So it doesn't actually say it's going to be a HBO Max show. It just says it's a HBO quality event. So interesting to see where this one will fall. But it sounds like this is going to be the first sort of... So we're going to be introduced to all these characters going. But it sounds like the first, the main story of Chapter 1 is going to be fully explored and fully fleshed out in this show. So that's interesting to read. Very interesting to read. Let's hear what the CEOs had to say about... Okay, so Greg's vision was more of a space opera, which, yeah. Our vision is more of a true detective, terrestrial-based investigation story. That's interesting. Because when you think of the Green Lantern, you think of the space, faring, Star Wars-y type, all, science fiction story that you could tell. But they're going to ground it. They're going to bring it back to this very true detective, very down-to-earth level. Which, yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by everything so far. I'm intrigued by this. I can't wait to read more and hear more about it, especially around we're going to have Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. And like I said with the other ones, the key, I don't think it's the key, but it's going to be there's going to be an eye on who's going to be portraying all these characters. So looking forward to this one. So yeah, it's going to be a detective investigative type story as opposed to a more space opera. So fair point. And by having them play a big role in the main story, yeah, I can't wait for it to play out. Next movie is Swamp Thing. Okay. So Swamp Thing is described as a horror film. There we go. Like I said, dipping their toes in different genres that will mark the end of DCU's Chapter 1. Saffran goes on to say that Swamp Thing is set to investigate the dark origins of the monster. So it's an origin movie. And like I said, appropriate for the lesser-known characters to give them origins. For the already established, well-known characters, we don't need origin stories, so that's good. Saffran revealed that Swamp Thing is... read that part. Meanwhile, Gunn said the mash-up quality of seeing Rocket Raccoon standing next to Thor in Avengers Infinity War would end up being one of the highlights of the MCU's crossover movie. Okay, it must have been asked a question and it's just randomly thrown in there. That said, James Gunn teased that they're one-upping that approach with Swamp Thing, potentially indicating the... okay, so we'll... I need to read the article before I jump the gun. A lot of people online need to read articles before they leave comments, but anyway. Gunn teased that they're one-upping the approach with Swamp Thing, potentially indicating that the title of the movie will cross over with the likes of Superman and Batman. This is much of a horrific film where you'll still have the Swamp Thing interact with other characters. Yep. So he's saying that the mash-up quality of seeing Rocket next to Thor, so came from two completely different places, and they're just standing next to each other in Infinity War, is one of the highlights of the movie. And the way they're going to introduce Swamp Man, it sounds like they're going to dip their toes into horror. We're going to see this horror-like dark movie. But then he's going to be standing next to Superman or Batman in the future, which to me also says that Batman is going to be more in a light tone compared to the Batmans we've seen in the past. So, Batman wasn't horror, but the side of seeing, something coming from his movie to where he's coming from is going to be mash-up quality. So, there you go. Looking forward to it. All right, next up, The Authority. Saffran, we're going to describe as kind of a Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, saying that that they want them on the wall, or at least they believe that. The movie will explore a team of superheroes that utilize extreme methods of protecting the planet. Gunn explained the decision to move forward with The Authority. One of the things that the DCU is that it's not just a story of heroes and villains. Not every film and TV show is going to be about good guy versus bad guy. Giant thing comes from the sky and good guy wins. While confirming that the movie is being written now, he didn't reveal the screenwriter. Okay, so he confirmed that the movie is being written, but he didn't reveal who's writing the movie. James Gunn said that he's really excited to see these characters being brought to life. Okay, so it's a movie. So it's going to be a movie, and this is where they're going to start to blur the line between hero and villain. If they haven't started that already, I'm just so far in the article, at this point in the movies, it looks like they're going to blur the line between heroes and villains. I'm all for that. I like, I'm a wrestling fan, and when you look at heels and bad guys, you get the tweeners, you get the baby faces, and then you get the anti-heroes, the Stone Cold Steve Austins in it. I like that idea, and I kind of want to see these guys play out. So I'm guessing we might see them as a bit of a sort of like, if I'm going to compare it to the MCU, sort of like a S.H.I.E.L.D. type of entity, in that depending on the context and depending on the movie and the characters, they're either going to be good guys or they're going to be bad guys. So we'll keep that as it is. Next up is Elseworlds Batman movie part 2. So that's the other thing. Two things to go from here. Yes, finally, Batman. The Batman's getting a sequel, and then the other thing is that it's got this prefix Elseworlds, DC Elseworlds, which means it's set on a different Earth, different timeline, different universe. Which yes, I'm all for. I hope we see more Elseworlds movies in the future. But like I said, I loved the Batman. It was my number one movie last year. I can't wait to see more of Robert Pattinson's Batman. Reeves is going to be doing it. Let's hope. Let's have a look. Yeah, Reeves is going to be reprising his directing role. Pattinson's back. The Penguin's back, which will lead. Oh, okay, so we've got a Penguin series, and maybe that's still coming, which will lead into the sequel. There's actually a whole little fabric of things wanting to do, the way we're doing with the Penguin, how that comes back and how it'll lead into the sequel, and that the sequel's going to be. Saffran expressed his excitement for 2025, describing it as a very big year for DC. The Batman Part 2 will release on October 3rd, 2025 at this stage. Yep, looking forward to that, can't wait to see that. Interesting thing there to note is that there's the Penguin series, which will lead into the sequel. Doesn't say in this little section what that's going to be, but that's the end of the article. So it doesn't say when that's going to drop, or how that's going to drop, where that's going to drop. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of this Matt Reeves, the Batman universe, and more around this world to be expanded upon in the Penguin and then lead into the series. Oh, lot to go through there. That's all the announcement that were made by James Gunn and Peter Saffran at their event. A lot to look forward to. And look, let's just say that I'm optimistic, but I'm cautious. DC has a reputation. Mind you, different studio had different approach, different, different structure around it. But DC EU sort of left a bad taste in the mouth. I'm hoping this is going to be the cleanser, but the first few movies, look, let's just face it. James Gunn's Superman reboot is going to set the tone. It's going to be the standard. It's going to give us a glimpse as to where everything's going to go. And it's going to be the palate cleanser. Oh, sorry about that. It's going to be the palate cleanser for the series. So if he does that right, if he plays his cards well, that's going to tell us. The second thing to note is that, fingers crossed, and I call Marvel out on this one, and Star Wars almost to an extent. I just hope that James Gunn and Peter Saffran in this new world that they're building don't rely on the trope where you need to watch Exhibit A to understand Exhibit B. For example, the MCU did an absolutely wonderful job of this until Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Because to fully understand the story of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, you needed to watch WandaVision. You needed to understand WandaVision. Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War on their own. Infinity War more so did a remarkable job in that you didn't really need to watch every movie leading into Infinity War to understand the story, from what I've heard. I've had people who have gone into Infinity War who have never seen an MCU movie in their life. First one gone in, and they knew exactly what was happening, and that just enticed them to go back and watch the series. I myself, my first exposure to the MCU was the Avengers. When I watched the Avengers, I was absolutely blown away that got me, that pulled me into the MCU, which meant I went back and watched all the movies leading up to it, and I was hooked ever since. I digress, but sort of, not really. The point I'm making is I hope DC doesn't follow that trope where you need to watch A, B, and C to understand what's happening here. I hope they do it in a way that doesn't lend itself to that, because I am a bit cautious with reading this last one, that the Penguin series will lead into the sequel. I hope we don't have that situation where, oh, you need to go watch Penguin before you come watch Batman 2. I'm going to watch The Penguin, but, everybody who's comic book fan, Batman fans are going to watch The Penguin, but people who may have watched The Penguin may watch The Batman and may skip over The Penguin, may be left scratching their heads. So fingers crossed they don't fall into that trope. But this is only just the announcement coming off the day. I am absolutely, I'm keen to see this play out. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's show. Here on Port Royal Pop, that's all we're going to have time for. We just ran through all the announcement made by James Gunn and Peter Saffran for the DCU Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters, I believe. The Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, Chapter 1 DCU reboot. I'm excited. Cautious, but I'm actually excited to see all these movies and hear more and see how things play out as time goes on. That's going to do it for today's episode. What did you think of all the announcements made by James Gunn and Peter Saffran at DCU? Let us know in the comments below what you thought. And if you like this video, please consider leaving a thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button and hitting the notification bell. Because if you subscribe to our channel and you want to be notified when our next upload is, the notification bell will send an update. We'll send a notification straight to your mobile device or wherever for when we go live or when our next stream is here on Port Royal Pop. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here on the channel very soon.